There's a lot to talk about, but we have to talk about the video that just dropped today. The Pooh Shiesty, Gucci Mane situation with a guy with a gun where they're basically forcing him to say that he's no longer signed in 1017.
What purpose would this video serve other than getting you locked up? I think he thought like he was gonna put out a video with just the one part. Hold on, no, say it, nigga. No, nigga said, yo, I told him. No, nigga, say it again, nigga. That's like what I'm saying, like when a nigga finally get like somebody was fucking me up though. Like what is Pooh Shiesty known for? Like the ski mask?
Shiesty mask,
The
right?
Shiesty mask.
Why is this nigga in the video without it on?
No, he got it on, he got it down. Why? What's the point of it then?
Probably around 30 years. He's facing life. That's the number being thrown around for Pooh Shiesty right now. A rapper who went 8 times platinum, survived 3 years in federal prison, and came home to a fresh start, only to allegedly torch the whole thing months later by allegedly putting a gun on the man who signed him. Here's the full story. Lontrell Williams Jr. was born November 8, 1999, in Memphis, Tennessee, raised in the Cane Creek Apartments in South Memphis. His father, Lontrell Williams Sr., known as Mob Boss, ran an indie label out of South Memphis back in the 90s, so Shiesty grew up in the studio watching the game work before he ever touched a mic. His mother gave him the nickname Mr. Pooh as a kid. His brother Taryn Henderson, who later passed from brain cancer in 2021, is credited with pairing Pooh with Shy, Memphis slang for sneaky, to form the name that stuck. He started dropping music locally in 2018, ran with the Choppa Gang alongside Big 30, Chapo T, and K Shiesty, and caught real buzz by 2019. Then in April 2020, Gucci Mane signed him to 1017 Records, a joint venture with Atlantic. Gucci slid into his DMs personally to make it happen. That partnership turned into Back in Blood, featuring Lil Durk in November 2020, a record that hit number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100, went multi-platinum, and put his name everywhere. But while the career was taking off, the legal trouble was already starting. On October 9, 2020, in Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, a meetup involving sneakers, weed, and a rented McLaren allegedly went sideways. Prosecutors say Shiesty and a co-defendant pulled weapons and shot 2 people during the exchange, then fled, leaving behind a Louis Vuitton bag with $30,000 inside. A detail that made a lot of people question whether this was actually a planned robbery or something that escalated out of a normal deal gone bad. He turned himself in days later, facing armed robbery charges that would eventually go federal. Then, on Memorial Day weekend 2021, a second incident hit. A shooting at the King of Diamonds strip club in Miami, allegedly tied to a dispute over money falling out of his pocket. A security guard was hit in the leg and survived. Shiesty turned himself in again, caught an aggravated battery charge, and got banned from the club as a condition of bond. All of this was happening while his music kept climbing. His debut tape Shy Season dropped in February 2021, debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200, and eventually went double platinum. He was getting XXL freshman recognition while facing a case that could put him away for life. On January 4, 2022, he pleaded guilty in Miami federal court to 1 count of conspiracy involving firearms and crimes of violence, admitting to involvement across 3 separate incidents. The plea deal cut his exposure significantly. Instead of a possible life sentence, Judge K. Michael Moore sentenced him in April 2022 to 63 months, about 5 years and 3 months, citing his age, his career, and family support as mitigating factors. With time already served and good behavior, the actual projection was closer to 3 years. He served time at USP Canaan in Pennsylvania and was released early on October 6, 2025. In a post-release interview with XXL, he talked about using solitary time to write material for multiple albums, picking up new habits like working out and reading for the first time, and working on his temper and decision-making. He credited his faith for getting him through it, shut down rumors that he'd cooperated with anyone while inside, and said he took direct inspiration from how Gucci Mane transformed himself after his own prison stint. His comeback single FDO, First Day Out, dropped December 12, 2025, and hit number 1 on the Hot R&B Hip Hop Songs chart, his first #1 ever, while also charting on the Hot 100. Everything was pointing toward a clean second chapter. That chapter lasted about 3 months. On January 10, 2026, at a recording studio on Dallas Parkway in Dallas, Texas, Shiesty allegedly set up what was supposed to be a business meeting with Gucci Mane to discuss getting released from his 1017 Records contract. According to the federal criminal complaint, Gucci flew in with 2 security personnel that afternoon for what looked like a normal sit-down. Once the meeting moved into a side room, Shiesty allegedly asked to be let out of his deal. Gucci said no. That's when, according to the complaint, Shiesty allegedly had Big 30 bring in a black bag containing an AK-style weapon, which was pointed at Gucci while he was allegedly forced to sign paperwork releasing Shiesty from the contract. Big 30 allegedly recorded Gucci confirming the release on video while it happened. Shiesty allegedly turned to his father, who was present, to ask if the paperwork was good, and his father reportedly pointed out the document wasn't dated, prompting them to have Gucci date it on the spot. While that was unfolding, prosecutors say others in Gucci's party were robbed. One victim was allegedly shoved onto a couch and had his wallet and jewelry taken. Another was allegedly choked and stripped of a Rolex, jewelry, a bag, and cash. Shiesty himself allegedly took Gucci's wedding ring, earrings, watch, and cash. According to reporting on the case, people in that second room believed they might be executed given how they were positioned and controlled. Big 30 is accused of physically blocking the studio door so nobody could leave, which is where the kidnapping charge comes from. 9 people were charged total: Shiesty, his father, Big 30, and 6 others, all facing federal charges including kidnapping and conspiracy to commit kidnapping, each carrying a potential life sentence. One detail made the case especially hard to walk back. Shiesty was on home confinement with an ankle monitor from his earlier Florida case at the time, and that monitor's location data is now being used as evidence placing him at the scene. Arrests happened April 1st and 2nd, 2026, through coordinated FBI raids across Memphis, Dallas, Nashville, and Atlanta. Shiesty was picked up in Dallas. On April 9th, a federal judge denied him bond, calling him a flight risk and a danger to the community. The fallout turned into a public story almost immediately. Federal investigators confirmed Gucci Mane himself identified Shiesty as one of the men involved. That detail reignited old conversations about Gucci's history. People pointed back to a years-old interview where he discussed identifying Jeezy after a separate incident, framing this as consistent with how Gucci has historically handled situations through law enforcement rather than the streets. Others online focused on the boldness of the alleged move itself, robbing and threatening the same man who signed you, on camera with an ankle monitor active. Some theories floating around tied a possible motive back to how Gucci handled things after the death of Shiesty's cousin, Big Scar, who he was reportedly very close to. None of that has been confirmed as an actual motive in court. On April 10th, right after the arrest, Gucci Mane dropped a record called Crash Dummy, widely read as a direct response, framing the whole situation as business, not personal, and reinforcing the idea that a contract signed under duress holds no legal weight anyway. The track racked up millions of streams almost immediately. Reaction online split hard. Some people went at Shiesty for crossing the man who gave him his break. Others argued label disputes and exploitation in the industry are real enough that the full picture isn't that simple. There was also debate about whether Gucci going the legal route instead of handling it privately cost him any credibility, versus those who saw it as the smarter move entirely. Legal analysts breaking down the case have pointed to one major factor working against Shiesty: the sheer number of cooperating witnesses. Multiple people in that room, including a camera operator, are reportedly cooperating with investigators, and at least one associate of Gucci's has already identified several of the suspects by name and social media handle. That kind of witness stacking matters more than recovering the stolen jewelry, since prosecutors don't need physical evidence back if they have several people independently telling the same story under oath. Shiesty pleaded not guilty to all charges in May 2026. A trial date has been set for July 6, 2026, in U.S. District Court in Dallas, with a final pre-trial conference on July 1st. All 9 defendants are set to be tried together. What happens next will define whether this becomes one of rap's most dramatic redemption stories or one of its most wasted ones. A platinum artist who survived federal prison once already, who built an entire comeback narrative around discipline and growth, now facing a case where the man who calls him out is the same man who gave him his first real shot. The verdict in July decides which version of this story actually gets written. Think about the timeline here for a second. This is a man who did 3 years behind bars, came home talking about therapy through solitary confinement, working out for the first time in his life, picking up books, fixing his relationship with his temper and with God. He sat down with XXL and laid out a real plan. Switch up his people, his places, his things, stay away from the same scenarios that got him locked up the first time. And for about 3 months, that plan looked like it was working. FDO hit number 1. The streets were rooting for him. The industry was rooting for him. Then, allegedly, in one afternoon inside a Dallas studio, all of that got put on the line over a contract dispute that, by most accounts, could have been handled through lawyers instead of an AK-style weapon. That's the part of this story that stings the most for a lot of fans. Not just the legal exposure, though 30 years to life is about as serious as it gets. It's the fact that the comeback was real. The growth talk wasn't just PR spin. People close to him backed it up. His lawyer backed it up. The early release itself was partly built on a record of good behavior inside. And now all of that sits next to a federal indictment with 8 other people, in a case the government appears to have built on more witnesses than they probably even needed. Let me know what you think really happened in that studio. Drop your take in the comments and subscribe for updates as the trial develops.